Right now, beneath the city of Naples, something is happening that scientists cannot fully explain, and what they have found in the last few weeks has genuinely terrified them. Not the kind of terrified you see in press releases with careful, measured language. The kind of terrified where researchers are calling each other at 2 in the morning, pulling up data again and again, hoping they made a mistake. Because if they didn't make a mistake, then everything we thought we knew about Campi Flegrei just changed completely. Here is what we know. For years, scientists have been watching this supervolcano, tracking its ground movement, measuring its earthquakes, monitoring its gas. And the official story has always been, yes, it is active, yes, it is dangerous, but we are watching it, we understand it, we have time. That story is now falling apart because a brand new study, published just weeks ago, has revealed a connection that nobody, and I mean nobody in the scientific community, saw coming. The CO2 gas rising from the ground beneath Naples is not just a warning sign of what the volcano might do. It is actively causing the earthquakes itself, right now. Today, the gas is cracking the rock, building pressure in fractures that run kilometers deep, and triggering seismic events with enough force to collapse buildings. And here is the part that should stop you cold. An AI system trained on this exact data already predicted a magnitude 4.4 earthquake before it happened. It got it right, which means the system is working. Which means what it is predicting next should make every single person living near Naples deeply uncomfortable. Over 3 million people live inside this caldera. Not near it, inside it, and the ground they are standing on is releasing CO2 at a rate that has doubled in just 3 years. This is not a slow story anymore. This is happening fast, and the scientists watching it are running out of reassuring things to say. Stay with me, because what comes next in this video will change how you see this entire situation. Let me take you back to something that happened quietly, without any headlines, without any breaking news alerts. A group of scientists sitting in a lab, staring at a screen, watching data that made absolutely no sense to them at first. They were running an AI system, a machine learning model, feeding it years of information from Campi Flegrei. CO2 levels, rainfall data, seismic readings, ground temperature, gas flux measurements. Thousands of data points, all fed into this system, and they asked it one simple question. Is there a pattern here that we are missing? And what the AI found back stopped everyone in that room completely silent. The CO2 rising from the ground beneath Naples was not just moving upward randomly. It was interacting with rainwater, seeping into deep underground fractures, building pressure in ways that human eyes looking at spreadsheets simply could not catch. And every single time this specific combination happened, CO2 spike, rainfall, underground pressure buildup, an earthquake followed. An earthquake followed in not sometimes, not occasionally, every time. The pattern was so consistent, so precise, that when the scientists tested the model against historical data, it had already predicted a real magnitude 4.4 earthquake before it happened, and gotten it exactly right. Now I want you to think about that for a second, because this is the part I need you to really sit with. We are not talking about a theory. We are not talking about a simulation of what might happen in the future. We are talking about a system that looked at the same ground, the same gas, the same rain falling over Naples, and predicted an earthquake that then actually occurred. That is not a coincidence. That is a mechanism. And here is the question I want you to drop in the comments right now, because I genuinely want to know what you think. If scientists already have an AI that can predict these earthquakes, why is nobody talking about evacuating? Why are 3 million people still living inside this caldera? like everything is fine? Drop your answer below, because the response from Italian authorities to this study is something we are going to get into. And honestly, it is not what you would hope to hear. Here is something that the mainstream news is completely skipping over. And honestly, it frustrates me that more people are not talking about this. Because when you actually look at the raw numbers coming out of Campi Flegrei right now, in 2021, the CO2 flowing out of the ground in the Solfatara area was already high, around 2,000 tons every single day. That alone should have been alarming. But by 2024, that number had climbed to over 4,000 tons per day. In 3 years, it doubled, and it is still climbing. To put that in perspective for you, that is the kind of CO2 output you normally only see from a volcano that is in the middle of actively erupting. Campi Flegrei has not erupted. It is just breathing, and every breath it takes is heavier than the last. And underneath all of that gas, the ground itself is rising. Pozzuoli, a city sitting directly on top of this caldera, rose 29 centimeters in just 1 year. The roads are cracking, buildings are developing fractures. People are waking up to sounds in the night that they cannot explain. And scientists have now confirmed that a hidden fracture, 1 kilometer long, running deep beneath Solfatara, is acting like a pressure pipe, channeling gas and heat directly upward, and every earthquake is making that fracture slightly wider. So I want to ask you something directly, and please answer this honestly in the comments. If your city's ground was rising, cracking and releasing toxic gas at double the rate of 3 years ago, would you stay or would you leave? And the tragedy is not that nobody was watching. Scientists have been watching this volcano for decades. The tragedy is that the thing connecting all those warning signs together was something nobody thought to look for, until an AI found it just weeks ago. Think about this carefully. Between 2022 and 2025, official monitoring stations recorded around 12,000 earthquakes beneath the Campi Flegrei caldera. That number alone was already terrifying enough to keep volcanologists up at night. But when the AI system processed the full seismic dataset, pulling in signals too small, too brief, too layered for human analysts to separate from background noise, the real number came back as 54,000. Over 50,000 earthquakes in 3 years, and every single one of those hidden earthquakes was feeding the same process. Widening fractures, shifting rock, creating new pathways for CO2 to push deeper and build more pressure. Each small quake was not just a symptom. What other processes are happening beneath that ground that our instruments are simply not sensitive enough to catch? Because the AI found the earthquakes by looking at the data differently, not with better equipment, just with a different way of seeing. There is a phrase that scientists use when they talk about Campi Flegrei behind closed doors. Not in press conferences, not in official statements, but in the conversations they have with each other when the cameras are off. The phrase is irreversible threshold. And what it means is simple and terrifying at the same time. It means the point where the underground system has been pushed so far for so long that it can no longer go back to what it was. The pressure cannot simply bleed off slowly. Multiple researchers studying the 2026 data are now quietly asking whether Campi Flegrei has already crossed that threshold. Because here is what they are seeing. The CO2 is not spiking and then dropping back down the way it did in previous unrest cycles in the 1970s and 1980s. It is spiking and then stabilizing at the new higher level before spiking again. Each time it rises, the new floor is higher than the last floor. The system is not releasing pressure, it is accumulating it. And the earthquakes are following exactly the same pattern. Each cluster is slightly stronger than the one before it. The June 2025 earthquake at magnitude 4.6 was the largest ever recorded at Campi Flegrei in modern monitoring history. I need you to stop for a second and really absorb what that means. Because I think a lot of people watching this are still somewhere in the back of their mind thinking, but it has been active before and nothing happened. There is a woman named Rosa who has lived in Pozzuoli her entire life, 67 years in the same house her father built. In the last 18 months, 3 cracks have appeared in her walls. Her front door no longer closes properly because the frame has shifted with the ground. But I am afraid that one morning I will wake up and the home will not be there anymore. Rosa is not alone. There are hundreds of thousands of people in exactly her situation. Not because they are being reckless, the CO2, because if a large seismic event triggers a sudden release of the gas that has been building in those underground fractures, the danger does not stay inside the red zone. CO2 is heavier than air, so tell me, and I genuinely mean this, leave your answer below. Do you think 500,000 people can actually be evacuated in time if this escalates suddenly? Because the next chapter is about the system that is supposed to save them, and whether it is actually ready. Italy has spent years building an emergency response plan for Campi Flegrei. They have color-coded alert levels. They have designated evacuation routes. They have official protocols sitting in government offices with signatures and stamps and approval from departments that took years to agree on the wording. But here is what nobody is saying out loud in those official meetings. The plan was designed around a scenario that the 2026 data has now made outdated. It was built assuming scientists would have weeks, maybe months of escalating warning signs before a critical event. The CO2 earthquake connection changes that timeline completely. Because the AI model is showing that the trigger from CO2 pressure buildup to actual earthquake can happen in hours, not weeks, not days, hours. Tell me honestly in the comments, does it feel to you like the people in charge actually understand the urgency of what is happening right now? Because the final chapter is where everything we have covered today collides into one terrifying question that nobody has answered yet. Scientists are not saying eruption is tomorrow, but what they are saying, carefully in measured academic language that somehow feels even more frightening than panic, is that the system is in a state they have never observed before. The hidden connection between CO2 and earthquakes was always there beneath Naples. We just did not have the eyes to see it until now. The real question is, now that we can see it, do we have the courage to act on what it is showing us? If this video made you think differently about what is happening beneath Naples, you already know whether this channel deserves a place on your feed. The button is right there. No pressure. Just hit it if you felt something watching this.